Thanks for your time. Thanks for the book. I loved it to bits. I had no idea that you weren't actually from London. So congratulations on that. You
Thank
nailed it.
you.
Yeah.
It was a great way to get to, I felt like I was writing my way into the city. I
Uh-huh.
spent so many hours going for long, long walks around everywhere and sort of,
Uh-huh.
looking down alleyways and trying to think where would be a fun place to murder someone. And it was just a great way to get to know the city, really. Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's quite curious because because I live here, but I took my family to London. We went to King's Cross,
Uh,
the hotel, and it was like literally 10 minutes walk from everywhere that you were speaking about, the Emirates
yeah.
Stadium and all that kind of stuff. So it was like, but it felt a lot more, I think it resonated a lot more with me because I could kind of picture myself
Who was there?
walking
Yeah, I've been
across
thinking I
the,
should do
yeah.
like a little walking tour for readers,
Yeah, yeah,
take them
yeah.
to see all the
Uh-huh.
locations. Yeah, in
I
case
mean,
anyone else needs to murder people and not get caught.
but that brings me to this next question is, what was it about that place that made it perfect for someone to to murder someone without sounding too
So,
macabre?
oh my goodness. So, okay, so how it's massive. I'm like a massive lifelong horror junkie, right? So I've loved particularly werewolf films for a very long time. And it's so fun writing a werewolf story because, especially one set in London, because it's such a
Yeah,
rich history.
sure.
But so I thought obviously a lot about American Werewolf in London, particularly.
Yeah,
And I
I mean,
was
you
thinking,
even mention a lot of movies. There's like a paragraph with about a good
yeah,
10,
there's
15 movies that are all
there's a
fantastic movies, by the way. Yeah.
thank you. There's a character named Alex who is Alex from American Werewolf in London. It's a
Wow.
little Easter egg. But I mean, I felt like I had to deal with a plotting problem that they didn't have to deal with, which is CCTV.
Yeah.
Today, I think there's not a square centimeter of London that isn't being watched at all times.
Mhm.
So that was a really tricky, just plotting problem. But again, it was American Werewolf that sort of led to the solution because obviously the classic scene is the tube scene.
Yeah.
And the whole time I was thinking, okay, I mean, it's a London werewolf story. At some point, there's got to be a big battle in the tube. And I felt like I was teasing that because there's a lot of scenes on the tube. But I thought, I kind of want to put a bit of a twist on it.
Yeah.
So that led me to thinking about what are other subterranean places that maybe haven't been explored. And I literally stumbled across one couple of years ago going for an architectural walking tour around Vauxhall, of all things. And there was a
Uh-huh.
giant hole next to the
Right.
Thames. And I asked, what is that enormous hole into the ground? And they told me it was they were building the super sewer.
Uh-huh.
And that was the answer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, talking of sewers, I didn't expect in the at the end of the book you give your thanks to someone who kind of, I don't know if you actually went down the sewers, but I know that he gave you kind of a tour, maybe on blueprints or something of kind of how the sewers work down there.
He works for the Thames Tideway, which is
Right.
yeah. So I didn't get to go down by the time so when I started writing, the tunnels were still being constructed, but they were no longer open to journalists. So there had been a couple of journalists who had gone
Right.
down and thankfully had made really good video footage. By the time I was really solidifying and editing those scenes, they were basically almost finished construction and then had capped it over so I never actually got to go down into the tunnels, which is a great tragedy for me. And they're not serviced by humans, so you can't go down into them now. They're
Right.
serviced by robots.
Couldn't.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, because
So
of
it'll
just
never
how
happen.
dangerous they are now. Yeah. Uh-huh.
They're really
Yeah.
deep. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Brilliant. So I mean, I mentioned there London. It's set in part of London, but there's also, I don't want to give anything away, but there is a little bit a mention of where I'm originally from Yorkshire. So I'm
Oh,
quite curious, what was kind of what made you decide to kind of, I mean, obviously there's the American Werewolf in
yeah.
London connection there, but was that the reason why you kind of separated London and this little bit we get in Yorkshire as well?
It was originally, yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of a direct homage. I did when researching the book. I went up to Yorkshire for a writing retreat with this really
Uh-huh.
lovely group called Write Club London.
Whereabouts did
Um,
you go in Yorkshire? I'm
I went to
originally
a
from
tiny.
Huddersfield.
It was a tiny village called Settle. I don't know if you know
Okay,
it.
right. My mum and dad had a little house,
No
it was like a
way.
summer house in Skipton, which is right near there. Yeah.
Amazing. It was so lovely. And I think as a South African who has found, I love London. It's a city of my heart, but Londoners can be quite unfriendly. And it was so nice just having good chats with everyone in Yorkshire. Everyone in Yorkshire is happy to chat.
Yeah, yeah,
And I felt,
absolutely,
and
yeah.
I miss mountains from home as well. And it was beautiful seeing some mountains. Yeah, I loved it. It was great.
No, I completely understand that because I actually because I was born and bred in Yorkshire, but I moved down to London to study at university, so I
Uh,
completely get that comparison that you made there. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Brilliant. So let's get into the book then. So I mean, obviously, it takes Barnesbury in London is a specific place that I didn't mention before. But I cannot. The first line that really kind of jumped out at me was a line that you said that humans are capable of cruelty that no
Mm,
wild animal is.
mm.
I mean, that's kind of like a recurring motive throughout the book. So I'm quite curious how central that idea was in shaping the whole story as a whole.
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, one of the kind of guiding uh, philosophies I think I have as a writer is this amazing line from Rilke where he says, live the questions. And there were a number of, I guess, ideas or thoughts that I carried into the process of writing the novel that I don't really, they're unresolved for me. They're things that seem to be in tension. And that
Mhm.
thing of the bestial and the human, I think, is definitely one of those unresolved questions for me. I mean, it was definitely, I was really interested in, when I was researching perimenopause, I came across some truly horrific authors from the 1950s and 60s writing about women's bodies. And there was a
Right.
line that really stuck in my head as well. It was someone who said, um, ovulation ties women to the animal economy. And I think there's something really interesting about how women's bodies are treated as more animal in many, many ways. And
Hmm.
these transformational experiences like puberty, like perimenopause, like childbirth, uh, seem to kind of physicalize women in our culture in a way that we don't physicalize male bodies in the same
Okay.
way. And I think that was something that I was sort of pulling on. I don't
Hmm.
know that I came to a clear conclusion, but I think the metaphor of the werewolf it felt like a really fun, I don't know, a chisel to crack, to climb into the crack and to peer inside. But yeah, I was really interested. I was also thinking a lot about animals as essentially innocence.
Yeah.
Also, not to give too big a spoiler, but the Brenda, the Van Helsing in my
It was
werewolf
my
story.
favorite new character, by the way. She's
Me too.
so good. So
I
funny.
love her. She's a woman in her 80s, and she's really trying to hunt the protagonist because the protagonist killed her cat.
Mhm.
I have a cat. I love my cat more than life, and that was like the worst thing I could imagine someone doing.
Yeah.
Um, and the I was thinking, obviously did a lot of research into wolves as well as werewolves and
Hmm.
mythology and genre stories of werewolves. Wolves themselves as animals, I think what becomes really clear are incredibly gentle and lovely. They're not particularly violent and aggressive. And that felt interesting. And I think that was one of those things that kind of started breaking open that idea for me of humans. There's actually a type of cruelty in humans that I don't think animals can be cruel in the same way because animals, I guess, maybe don't have, except for maybe primates, I don't know that they have as rich an idea of like a theory of mind. I don't know that they have empathy. I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know. Every time we say humans have this and animals don't have this, researchers disprove anything we say about that
Oh yeah,
eventually.
no, I
So,
know exactly. I mean, all the
yeah.
way through, I was always thinking that animals, basically, they can't have a chip on the shoulder like we do, like we can, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think it was a fun thing to subvert, right? Because on the one hand, you know, Ellie is becoming an animal, a creature, a beast, and then doing enormous acts of violence. And I mean, I think what I was really trying to explore there was that's a lie she's telling herself, that she's not in control of any of
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Um, I think that actually her violence is very human and actually not so out of control if she's really
Mhm.
honest with herself, which she never is.
Hmm. Yeah. So I'm talking of the main. Well, there's two main characters, but I want to talk about Ellie first of all. It's kind of like this. I guess would you call it a coming of rage, or kind of a midlife crisis coming of rage
Coming of
story in a
rage,
way?
love it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
kind of later on in life.
yeah.
Um, but when I was reading the kind of the author's note afterwards, I understand that it's quite heavily inspired on what you've actually kind of been through yourself. When you were younger, you were very much very what were the words you said exactly?
Repressed.
You're a chronic overfunctioner was the word you said, chronic
Yeah.
overfunctioner, and you did have rage, but you didn't understand what it was, and you didn't think that you had any rage inside you. So I'm guessing that was
Mm.
something that you've kind of. I mean, I think later on in life you realized what it was, and I'm guessing from what I've read in this book, you've learned how to let it out, not in the ways that we see in the book, but you've learned that it's important to release anger in certain ways to be able to purge it. No, so I'm quite
Yeah, for
curious.
sure.
How long has this the story of this novel been kind of brewing for?
Mm, mm. Well, firstly, I would say I'm still learning, I think, this lesson. It's funny, you were talking about the kind of coming of rage thing. The last novel that I wrote is a young adult novel, which was about the horror, puberty as a horror story. And this felt like a beautiful, I guess, story to follow that up with. Because the midlife shift, I think, is a puberty in another way. I think one of the wisest people that I've encountered who's spoken or written about perimenopause is Caitlin Moran, who I quote directly
Right.
in the
Yeah, you
novel because
talk
it's
about him.
so
Yeah.
brilliant.
Uh-huh.
And she talks about how, we treat this moment of unraveling that many women find themselves in around perimenopause as the aberration, as them kind of having a breakdown or, blowing up their supposedly perfect life. Um, but she invites us to sort of reframe that, I think, as actually the fertile years are what's unusual and weird, and that's when where our hormonal system is grooming us to be very empathetic and very understanding, and I think that intersects obviously with the cultural stories that we don't get about women's rage, right? Like, it's still unacceptable to be an angry woman in our culture. It certainly was for me growing up. And so I think as women, particularly, we don't learn to recognize anger in ourselves, even when it is there. And I think the werewolf, I think, was a really fun metaphor to play with because it's such a traditionally masculine animal, or creature, monster.
Mhm.
It's usually used as a metaphor for male aggression that can't be
Yeah.
controlled. Um, and we don't think about women as having as often aggression that
Mhm.
we haven't learned to manage until the
Absolutely.
midlife
Yeah.
shift, you know?
It's kind of like the
Um,
opposite. It's like the opposite. Sorry to interrupt you. It's like the
yeah,
opposite. Men, not so much now. It's getting better, but men were never allowed to cry when they were,
exactly.
and now it was like women are not allowed to get angry, and it's kind of role
Yeah.
reversal, which I really appreciated in the book. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think boys are groomed into the fact that it's not acceptable to be sad. So
Sorry,
to
I'm crying. I've got just my
transform,
allergies. Sorry, I've
really
got
touching
allergies.
you on in your feelings here, Howard. I think like it's unacceptable for boys. Boys learn from what they're told that it's unacceptable for them to feel sad, so that they find ways to transform those feelings, I think, into anger. And I
Mhm.
think with women, it's the opposite, right? Like, and it's taken me a very long time, I think, to learn to recognize and own my anger. Um, and it's very much a work in progress. Like, I feel it was one of the big questions I was taking with me when I started writing the novel. You asked kind of, how long I've been living with the story. The answer is a very long time.
Yeah.
I wrote a short story version of kind of a piece of the story, I think almost 10 years ago. And it's sort of been percolating in the back of my mind since then almost.
Right.
Um, and it still is an ongoing project for me
Sure. No. Yeah.
personally, I think, to
Uh-huh.
learn how to feel okay about feeling
Yeah.
angry sometimes.
Yeah. No. No. I completely. I get you because I always, especially kind of like things that are created in childhood. It's like cement. I can't remember. I think it was Joe Rogan that I heard say. He said it's like
Mm.
cement that when you're a kid, it's like wet cement that's kind of forming, and then once it formed, it's very very difficult to kind of chisel away and kind of get better there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
totally. Yeah. And I think when we meet Ellie, I think of her as kind of being caged by her own competence to some extent. Like, her coping mechanisms have been working so well for 42 years of her life, that she doesn't feel like anything is wrong. She so effectively, through her hyperfunctioning, definitely she's not me, but like
Yeah.
similarly, she's a piece of me, obviously, but through her hyperfunctioning, she's so effectively avoiding looking at so many difficult things.
Yeah.
But I think, what I've learned is that or what I am learning, I think, is that when you are not looking at those difficult things, they don't go away.
Yeah.
They're still there, and
100%.
they're mutating into
Yeah.
something potentially much more ugly and disruptive.
Uh-huh. I mean, it's obviously without kind of prying into your own personal life, I'm guessing that this book almost served almost like writing a journal in a way to help you kind of not push things under the rug now.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because when I started writing the project in earnest, which was about 4 or 5 years ago, um, it was kind of it didn't feel like catharsis. It didn't feel like, oh, okay, I realized I have all this anger in me and I need to get it all out on the page. Like I
Yeah.
need to purge it from myself. It didn't feel like that at all. It felt like this is the feeling I don't actually feel. What'll it feel like to write a character that feels very angry and almost kind of
Right.
imagine what it would feel like to have that feeling. But then through that process, which I mean, journaling is definitely one metaphor. I think of it often. The metaphor that I think of often is spelunking. I felt like I was really sort of
Right.
fumbling around in the dark in a cave system in my brain with a lot of dead ends and crawling around and trying to see what was down there. Um,
Right.
but in the process of doing that, I definitely I found some of my own anger, and in a very healing way for me. Um, yeah, which is kind of amazing that the process of writing can do that.
Yeah, no, brilliant. At the same time, this woman who's going through so much rage, it's so ironic, but in the best possible way, that she works for a company that is creating this kind of meditation app. Uh,
Yeah, like a
I,
wellness app.
yeah, a wellness app, which does actually, I don't want to spoil anything, but which also does kind of bring out things about releasing rage with that I won't go into. But yeah, obviously, that kind of plays into it. But it was really ironic. And then at the end, I read that is that something that you teach or something you study as well? So I'm guessing that kind of also informed you why you wanted Ellie to have that specific type of job.
Oh, the tech. So I worked in the tech industry for a decade,
Right.
and I left it sort of at the beginning of COVID, so end of 2020. Um, I'd been building a writing career for most of my adult life on the side, but sort of really just steered fully into being a writer, and now I also teach creative writing,
Right.
which is delightful. I think the best way to learn how to be a better writer is to talk to other people about the process.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so a lot of the book was informed by my time working in the tech industry. And a lot of the novel, I think, is a critique of, I guess, how the tech industry thinks about really complicated human, social, biological problems in incredibly oversimplified ways. And it tries
Yeah.
to offer easy, cheap fixes and hacks for things and always individual things that make things your own responsibility. Another thing to
Mhm.
put on your to-do list,
Yeah.
even problems that are really systemic. So
Mhm.
I think it's also it's a disillusionment story. Ellie, who starts off, I think, quite believing in the project that she's working in. She's there because she really wants to try and help people.
Yeah.
Um, but I think through the process of the book, I was really kind of probing how much the tech industry really can help people with their mental health.
Yeah.
In fact, have they caused many of the problems they're now pretending that they can solve?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
so that was
Uh,
really fun to skewer.
I mean, I don't want to speak too much about this next point, but I was reading a few reviews, and as soon as they saw that AI was, I imagine you know what I'm we're going to say to you. As soon as
Yeah,
AI is mentioned, they're like, I don't want to know anything about this because the writer said they've used AI, but they couldn't be farther from the truth because the use of AI in here is to explain how incapable and useless it is, especially in this story. And
yeah. So
kind of every segment that is actually, I imagine the kind of the weird text that doesn't make any sense is what you got from AI. So people,
exactly.
they need not be aware that this is an AI created book because it's exactly the opposite. It's saying exactly the opposite. Don't use AI. We can't rely on AI, right?
Yeah, so I mean, what happened basically is there are two paragraphs in the book that I specifically used AI to generate, and they are AI meditations in the world of the story. And the one paragraph I used ChatGPT 3, I think,
Right.
and the other one I used iOS predictive text. It's when the model starts sort of breaking down.
Yeah.
So they're two specific paragraphs that I used AI to generate. And I wanted to be really transparent about the fact that I had done that. So I mentioned that in the author note. I certainly didn't use AI in the book elsewhere. Like I didn't
Yeah.
use AI to write the book. I used AI to generate those two specific paragraphs where I am pointing out particularly how empty those meditations are and how they sort of look profound the first time you look at them, and then you think
Yeah.
about them for 3 seconds and then realize they're not.
Mhm.
And I think, because I was writing about AI, it felt funny to me to use AI to point out exactly, what I was to
Faults.
demonstrate
Yeah.
the points, I think. But
Yeah.
I do, like, I understand. I think it's a scary time in the industry, and people have really strong feelings.
Yeah.
And we're all trying to figure out,
Hmm.
how are we going to deal with this quite existential threat?
Yeah, but no, I wanted to bring it up because I wanted to make sure that the people who DNF'd it or whatever, as soon as they found out, I want them to go back and realize that it's not what they think it is. Yeah.
Thanks.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's two paragraphs that where I'm very specifically mocking. Uh, yeah,
Uh-huh.
how profound AI meditations can be.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny
Just
because when I
think,
started
sorry.
writing that, it was science fiction,
Right.
4 years ago. And, there's, I think, a whole scene in the novel, a large part of the novel, there's this joke about, which is totally like real life, where everyone in the tech industry just wants to slap AI on everything. And that's what happens. And I had a lot of fun skewering kind of the silliness of that. And people were riffing in the novel about, imagine you could have like a whole therapy chatbot. And when I wrote that, that was an unimaginable science fiction, hilarious Black Mirror idea. And then as I was working on the novel, that became real. And there's a plot line in the book where a young boy stabs another boy because of the AI, because the AI tells
Right.
him to, which again, when I wrote that scene was science fiction, and now is very much real and fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sticking with tech as well. I mean, there also there's also a very good message about technology and the fact that it says that these algorithms and social media and technology in general, they know us better than we know ourselves for about a lot of things, mainly because we don't, like we've been saying, we don't let our anger out. We don't share a lot of feelings that we do, but we do without realizing it when we share something on social media, whatever. There's kind of hidden messages there, and the algorithm and AI or whatever picks up on those, and they can
Mhm.
be very useful for mental health ailments, I would have thought. And it kind of
Mm.
really, really kind of makes you think about how they could be used rather than the way that they are used now for the things we
Yeah.
don't want them to, especially destroying art.
Yeah, destroying art, stealing from artists,
Yeah,
enriching oligarchs who are funding illegal wars, yeah, all those things. I mean, I think the novel is really interested in the ways that we lie to ourselves. And yeah, I mean, the passage that you're talking about, yeah, that's what I'm talking about is how I think the line is Ellie says, our phones know us better than we know ourselves because they know your phone knows the gap between who you want to be and what you actually do.
yeah.
um yeah.
Mhm. No, 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 brilliant. Yeah. Now coming to like I said, one of my favorite characters that I've read in a long time is Brenda. I'm very curious why you wanted. I mean, I talk about the two people, Ellie and Brenda, as kind of like the protagonists because you can't really say whether Ellie's an antagonist, protagonist, but for me they're both protagonists. But why did you decide on Brenda, this 82-year-old maverick Miss Marple type who? Why did
Curmudgeon.
you why did you choose her as kind of the counterpart to go in kind of search of what's happening in the story? I won't. I don't. I'm trying not to spoil anything. Why did you use her as the counterpart?
Why, Brenda? Yeah, I mean, I think partly I know I have my grandmother, for example, is quite a lot like her, was quite a lot like
Yeah,
her. I find people like Brenda some of the most interesting people in the world because they are so overlooked and underestimated. And what was so fun about writing Brenda is she finds ways to turn all of these things that people perceive as a weakness about her into a strength. So the fact that she has a lot of time on her hands means that she can be dogged and relentless and
yeah,
work through, clues that no one else is going to bother looking at.
uh-huh,
The fact that people, underestimate her means she's able to talk her way into places she really shouldn't be, and
yeah,
a policeman probably wouldn't be able to get into. So she was just really fun to write, I think. And obviously, I think she also acts as a foil for Ellie. So I think the first draft that I wrote of the book was actually a three-person point of view with Paige, Ellie's daughter, Ellie, and Brenda as a bit of a three stages of life thing. Um, and with Paige, and Paige is still a really core character in the novel. But I felt it worked better if there's more mystery because she is a mystery to Ellie. Ellie doesn't know what's happening with her.
yeah,
That's the kind of frustrating thing as a mother. Um, but I was really interested in kind of looking at women's rage and the life cycle of how it's repressed throughout our lifetime and the effect that that has on us. So with Paige, I think you see the beginnings of the repression. So I don't want to say too much because I think it's a spoiler of what's really happening with Paige. But I think there we see a young woman who should be a lot angrier than she is, but for various reasons, she's not getting angry. And I think with Ellie, we see what another 20 years of doing that will do to you,
yeah,
and the kind of the failure of that system. And Brenda, as a foil to Ellie, I think is quite a hopeful foil because Brenda has no fears. She has no ability or interest in repressing her anger at all. But I think with her, what I was really exploring was the ways in which anger can be really powerful and positive. Because the longer I think we spend with Brenda, the more firstly, we just really understand that she's angry for very good reasons. And she uses that fury to power her to trying to fight for justice, really. And I find her deeply admirable. I find people like Brenda, and I know many, I find them deeply admirable and deeply underestimated.
yeah.
Yeah, so she was my favorite character to write by far. She was also just fun.
Oh, she's a great fun. Yeah, but it's like you said, it's like a lot of old people, we see them standing by building sites and seeing what's going on, those kind of things. And we just think they're all these fuddy-duddies who are just not minding their own business. But at the same time, if it wasn't for people like Brenda, there's a lot of things that would go amiss.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, when I was researching the novel, I came across this real life organization, fascinating, that they are trying to track down a serial killer of cats in South London. And a lot of that organization was the inspiration for Brenda's storyline. And that's a real life example of people with a crusade, people on a moral crusade, people
Hmm.
who have dedicated their lives to a cause that other people, no one else will give time and attention to. Yeah, those people are amazing and they
Yeah.
run the world, honestly.
Uh-huh. And yeah, and
Yeah.
it's great to see that people of a certain age are still curious for things and kind of they want to find something to do with the time, even though they know they've got one foot in the grave.
Well, I mean, I know some of my favorite people in my life are quite a lot older than me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think I'm really inspired by people who have stopped caring what the world wants them to be, I think.
Yeah. Is it okay if I read three quotes that I to kind of show how much I appreciated how the book doesn't shy away from some uncomfortable truths, and can you kind of
Please, yeah, I'm curious
elaborate
about
on
what you've
those for me?
chosen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one is Ellie says, "It never ceases to amaze me how quickly this generation announce their traumas and make them a part of their personal brands. How it can be healthy to make those things the bedrock of your personality." I was
Mm.
really curious. What was the specific reason for you to include that in the story in the book?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a line I would say that is a line that very much belongs to Ellie. It belongs to the character. I think that there's this really difficult, again, this is kind of an unresolved question, I think, for me, and that I was exploring in the book. Ellie has really bought into wellness culture, and she really believes in positive psychology. And you can think yourself into happiness. But I think and there's some wisdom in thinking like that, but I think she has taken it to a place where it's also deeply unhealthy. And she's using these things that I think can, thoughts, ideas, or ways of thinking about the world that have contained some wisdom, but she's maybe over applied them.
Mhm.
And actually, what she's doing is profoundly repressing every difficult feeling that
Yeah.
she has, because she's afraid of her own anger, and she's afraid of
Uh-huh.
the deep well of sadness that it's kind of a carapace over. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's definitely how Ellie thinks about the world early on in the story. Is she's quite horrified by younger people who are very fluent in the language of trauma. And because as she sees it, your mind reinforces every thought that you have. So if you just think happy thoughts,
Yeah.
nothing is wrong, nothing is bad. I think that Ellie learns the limits of that way of thinking. But again, it's not that it's entirely wrong. I think there's a kernel of wisdom,
Yeah.
but it's not all the truth.
I mean, obviously that's kind of a universal thing, I guess, but I think it's also
Mm.
very British. I don't know if that was something that you came up with while you were speaking with people in the UK, but it's like it's very typical. It's how you doing? Not bad, not bad. It's like
Yeah,
anything that's it's not. Yeah, I'm really good. I'm really good. Thanks for asking. Exactly the
yeah, I did.
opposite. Yeah.
It was, I mean, I moved to the UK in 2020, hilarious timing. And it has been really fun, I guess, trying to get to know the British psyche a little bit better. I definitely one of the things I think I've stripped it back in some of the later edits, but I do have Ellie apologizing to people all the time for no reason, which strikes me as kind of the quintessentially British
Very, very. Yeah,
mannerism.
yeah. Excuse me, pardon. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
pardon. I think in
Even
the
when you
very
don't,
first
when you've not done
page,
it. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
exactly. The very first
Uh-huh.
page, a cyclist has crashed into her, and she is
Uh-huh.
apologizing, and he's apologizing, everyone's
Uh-huh.
apologizing. I was like, okay,
No,
this
it's
is
quite fun actually. And now that
British.
you mention that, I mean, I have had been with a psychologist certain times of my life, and one of the
Mm.
first things that he said to me, I don't know, I'm guessing it's because it was Spanish more than actual my problem. He said, "You've got to stop saying sorry all the time."
I love it.
Talking of which, I think someone told you to stop making to-do lists as well, no?
Yeah, that was my
Which is like the
therapist.
that
She
must I mean
banned me.
just looking reading the list was anxiety inducing for me. So I mean I can't imagine what it must have been like
Welcome to my
for you
brain,
because I
Howard.
think that's something that you did a lot. I don't know if you still do it, but
I am afraid I am still deeply addicted to do lists. Yes, I have
yeah.
not entirely cracked the addiction.
I mean they say it's
Yeah,
supposed to help you to kind of be organized and everything, but there's limits and limits.
no, you're just trying to fund. I mean, like I have enough insight now to understand that I'm just trying to control fundamentally and a chaotic universe that I'm really not in control of. But knowing that is true doesn't stop me from needing to self-soothe myself by
Yeah.
making to-do lists and making myself feel like everything's manageable. That to-do list, the infinite to-do list, I think that was how I found Ellie's voice, and I think it came
Yeah.
through almost from the first vomit draft, the first scenes I wrote. I think that list really, that was there, I think, before the werewolf was there to some extent.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that to me really is the key to who is she is a person whose internal monologue is a to-do list that never finishes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, what a way to live. What a
Uh-huh.
cage.
But
Yeah.
I thought that it played really well into kind of how she's such a control freak in kind of the to-do list. So imagine you suddenly get these blackouts and these you don't know what's happened. So that I mean, just for a normal person, that's the worst thing that could happen to you. But for someone who so needs to be in control of everything that's going on, that's happened, that's going to
Mm,
happen, for that to happen and for to wake up and suddenly realize what the hell's just gone, what's happened? Could this be me? Whatever. That must be.
yeah.
I mean, I just thought that really played really well into that. But yeah.
Thanks. It's a real test. I mean, I think that this is also where I really was exploring, and this was actually the part that was just pure catharsis, was the stuff about medical gaslighting. Because, Ellie starts experiencing these truly horrendous things, and tries to get medical help. Well, first,
Yeah.
she does the Ellie thing, and she tries to install an app about it, and which is about as
Yeah.
helpful as you'd expect. And then she tries to seek medical help, and none exists. And
Uh-huh.
that was the part of the novel where really I was writing some scenes that were pretty much one-to-one depictions of things that have happened to many of my friends who have hit midlife and suddenly they can't fucking sleep, and really start experiencing these really difficult things,
Mm-hmm.
and go see a medical professional who should be able to help them. And the doctor suggests maybe they should try losing some weight.
Yep.
It is kind of the most horrific thing that is getting better, but far, far, far too slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. It's a real test for Ellie, and this isn't an easy thing that can be solved easily. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, and another phrase that I noted down here is I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if this Caitlin Moran. I can't remember. But Ellie also says, "Where's the line between giving women tools to feel less anxious and expecting women to be eternally grateful and placating?"
Mm, mm. Yeah, this was the question about, because I think the world that she comes from, tech, is a world of fix your problems and easy fixes. And when she tries tech to fix her problems and it doesn't, she then turns to medicine. And I think there, what I was getting into was the debate around HRT, which I think I'm not an expert on menopause, but from what I can tell, basically HRT is a miracle for the majority of women, and far more
Mm-hmm.
people should be taking HRT far earlier than currently are. It would be radically helpful for many, many people. Um, but at the same time, menopause is a biological and a psychological and a sociological and a cultural thing. It's
Yeah.
all of these things, and the solution can't also again only lie in individual medical solutions. Because where does our feeling like we have to take HRT because we worry that if we don't, we will be haggard old crones and no one will ever love us again.
Uh,
Where does it intersect with social pressures that are not actually good for us? These things are complicated and they're tangled. And I think for me, the problem is the fundamental mindset of, reality is a set of problems to be fixed and a biology to be hacked. I think is fundamentally a broken way of seeing the world.
mhm. And then by extension of that, I also noted down, it said the menopause is really when women finally get sober. It's
Yeah.
as though they've been on some kind of drug or some panacea or something, and then they realize how badly they've been fucked.
Yeah. That is a line from Caitlin Moran.
That
Um,
was the one. Okay, I couldn't remember
yeah.
the previous one of that one. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, yeah. Why was
Yeah.
that? Why was it important for you to include that one there? It's
I,
great.
I,
I loved it.
Caitlin Moran wrote this unbelievable essay called Me, the Drugs, and Perimenopause, which is the single article I have sent to more of my friends than any other article.
Right.
I think it should be compulsory reading for every person. Um, and yeah, that I loved it so much, and it acted so much as a touchstone for me throughout writing this story,
Uh-huh.
that I wanted to quote directly from it. So yeah, so Ellie and some of her other friends are having a conversation in the book where they discuss this article. So I love it so much. Yeah, and that's one of Caitlin Moran's lines. That's we act as though perimenopause is the moment of change and of the aberration, the time of disruption. But actually, maybe a different way of seeing it is it's the moment we're returning to normal. We are returning to a truer version of ourselves, and actually
Yeah.
the childbearing years when we were so flooded with hormones that made us soft and empathetic and compliant and loving and forgiving all the time, that repressed our
Uh-huh.
rage. That was the weird time. This is
Yeah.
actually more normal. I
Yeah.
love that idea. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, yeah. You mentioned that you send this is something that you send to all your friends. I'm guessing you use female and male, no?
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because I'm so glad that I read this because there was so I feel, I mean, I don't know how I mean, I imagine most of it is very scientifically correct that you've spoken to professionals and stuff.
Oh yeah, all
I'm so
women
glad
hit
I
midlife and turn into werewolves. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
apart from that bit, but I'm so glad. I mean, it was really fascinating to me because I really had. I mean, both of my parents were my father was a GP and my mother was a
Mm.
nurse, but I had no knowledge of this in particular at all. And my
Well,
wife's
even
about that age, so it
mm,
was kind of really interesting for me. So I imagine when you were writing it, you were really thinking about that this will be read by men and women, and I imagine you were kind of you second guess yourself a little bit to decide what to what style to write or what things to kind of to convey so that it can provide things for
mm.
both all genders that there are.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm glad that it landed like that for you. Yeah, I mean, and just to say, I think that it's horrifying, even amongst medical professionals, um, how little training they get on this thing that affects 50% almost of the population. And again, it's one of these things that's changing now. Way too slowly. I'm so grateful that there's a little bit more awareness now. You're totally right, and I think really where that's explored in the novel is in the relationship between Ellie and Mo, her husband,
Yep.
who, I love Mo. Like Mo, some of my friends have read the book already. There's some mixed feelings about Mo. There's some Mo haters. I fundamentally think that Mo's not a bad person. He just he has no way to understand what Ellie is
Yeah.
going through.
Yeah, I can
And
understand. Sorry,
yeah,
no, so I was just going to say that I can understand why people might not particularly like him because the way that he tries to push some things under the rug by kind of laughing them off a little bit, trying to find humor. But I never
yeah,
understood, I never took it as like a bad way because that is also another way. If I'm feeling really bad, I'll maybe watch a stand-up show or something like that.
yeah.
There's just different ways of dealing with things, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I think the fact that Mo has so little ability to understand what Ellie's going through, that's also partly because of this terrible, lack of talking about this thing that's been so taboo and so under researched for so
Yeah.
long. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Then with that, I don't want to give too much away, but there's also Ellie comes across some other friends at this group of I wrote down here. Where's it gone now? Yeah, it's a bit like Alcoholics Anonymous, but I decided to call it Climacterics Anonymous, and it's kind of they talk about reaching the menopause. Um, do those kind of things? I'm guessing those kind of things exist, but why did you specifically have um, get a good a nice earn a really nice relationship, create a really nice relationship with this very peculiar character called Carol, and specifically
Mm.
the kind of clothes she wears. She was very specific about these kind of things. What was it about Carol? Was she inspired by someone or something? Because it felt like she was very specifically kind of, you
Mm.
really described her character and her traits and her clothing very specifically. Was there a specific
Oh,
reason
good.
for that?
No, I could see her very clearly in my head, I think. I don't know.
Right.
So much of being a novelist is sitting in my room and talking to my imaginary friends. And Carol's definitely one of my imaginary friends. I don't know. Um, I mean, like every character is a piece of you. So
Sure.
she's probably a piece of me that I like a lot more than I like the Ellie piece. Um, yeah, I mean, I think what became so clear to me about the cage that Ellie is in at the beginning of the novel is that she's made so much time for so many parts of her life. She really is trying to have it all. She's got a family that she's very caring and very devoted. She's looking after her father-in-law, worrying about her daughter. She's a badass at work. She's helped build this company. She's on all of these. She gets involved in like charities on the side. She's like a busy person. She does
Uh-huh.
CrossFit. But the thing that she is missing from her life that she really doesn't have are friends.
Yep.
That's the thing that there was no time for, that she did not make time for. And it's, I think, also the thing that saves her in the end is finding a pack, and finding other women who understand what she's going through. And with Carol, I think there's something there's more there. Not to kind of
Yeah.
get into too much into spoiler territory, but yeah, I think fundamentally my main it's as simple as I think the real solution to most people's mental health problems, for many people's mental health problems, is we need friends, we need
Yeah.
community,
Finding someone to share
and
it
that's
with.
true
Yeah.
for Ellie. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Uh-huh. Um, let me see. So yeah, what I was gonna say is that I could when I finished it, I honestly I could imagine this as a movie. I really could imagine it as a movie because it would because of the way there's almost like a who done it, Miss Marple investigation, werewolf, all these kind of things. Um, the only problem is that whenever, especially horror fans, when they watch horror movies, I'm sure you're the same. If a human dies,
yeah,
there's cheers and it's exciting. But if it's a cat,
yeah.
a pet, or
Never
any other
kill the
kind of
dog.
animal,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't.
Oh, and I kill
But
so many pets. I know.
only
I know. And I know that that's
only on
another
paper.
reason that not everyone is going to love this book. And I wanted to make sure that I put one of the first dead pets in the first section so that people know what they're getting into. And there's content warnings on the website as well.
No,
I
but
understand that's
it's
not for
not too
everyone.
graphic though. I've just read another book,
Yeah.
Petty Lies by Sulmy Back, I think it is, and that had some seriously
Oh,
depraved
really? Yeah.
animal torture. So this was quite easy.
Yeah.
Quite, if I hadn't
It's
read
not
that, it
that.
wouldn't. But it was kind of an easy reader for me. This one.
It's not there's not torture. I
No.
think that would have been too much for me to write. I mean, I found it quite difficult even to write some of it's just the descriptions of bodies. I am a animal lover. My cat is the love of my life. And honestly, I think the reason that there are so many dead animals in the book is because it's the worst thing I could imagine her doing to some extent. And
Hmm.
again, that kind of my question of rage, it's, do we need more of it? And I think one of the things that really came out for me when I started tugging on that was what makes me so uncomfortable about rage. I think one of the things is how closely in my life I've experienced it as coming hand in hand with violence. And while anger, I think, is essential and primal and necessary and a foundational human emotion, and it just is, whether it's good or bad, um, I think violence is, ugly and uncontrollable and leads to cycles and spirals of violence. Um, and uh, and sometimes is still necessary. It's complicated. But because at the beginning of the book, when Ellie's anger really comes exploding out in the form of this beast, um, she's still repressed. She's still trying to fight that beast. And the thing that comes out is profoundly violent in a way that it's not controllable. And there's some revenge fantasy in the book, which is definitely some of the pleasure of the book, but it's not only satisfying revenge fantasy. There's also a lot of innocents that die. um, and that felt important to me. I think that I was exploring some of the darkness of this, and not just letting it be, because it's not that simple for me.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't have felt like an authentic book for me to write. So yeah, but there are a lot of dead animals. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, but it wasn't that the book was written. I mean, as cinematic, but I could just imagine it playing out as a really, really fun and fascinating movie. I hope
Thanks.
Neil
Well,
Marshall
fingers
or someone like
crossed.
that's watching because that would be fantastic. I mean, I think you mentioned Dog Soldiers was one of those
Yeah,
movies. Yeah,
oh, so
and
good.
it's
I mean, I think
yeah,
this is the reason it probably feels quite filmic, is that at least in the 20th century, there's so much werewolf media that it's such it's such a film legacy, I think, of werewolf
uh,
stories. And a lot of my research, my most fun research, was watching every single thing I could get my paws on.
yeah.
I did also read quite a lot of Omega Breast novel
All
for
right.
research purposes only. But yeah, I mean, definitely there's a lot of film homage, I think, in the
Yeah.
novel. Yeah, I've been writing screenplays more over the last couple
All
of
right.
years as well, and I think that's definitely it's affected my definitely it's taught me it's affected my sensibilities around certain things like
Uh-huh.
pacing, I think.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it
No,
is
but yeah,
quite.
no, it's like I said, it didn't feel like it was written directly for this for to made into a film. But I would love to see this as a movie, for example. I'd love to.
Me
It
too.
works so well. Yeah. Uh-huh. Just before I let you go, there's one thing that I'd forgotten to ask you. I mean, we mentioned a little bit about Ellie and her husband Mo, and then they've got the daughter Paige. Obviously, I'm not going to give anything away about that, but as a parent myself, it really opens your eyes to how complicated it is to realize problems that kids are going through. Um, And like for example, Mo on Mo's side, he tries to help by finding humor in it without knowing actually what is the root of the problem.
Mm.
Whereas Ellie, who really does try to help as much as possible, there's still certain things that make it impossible for her to know exactly what's going on. So it really kind of, as a parent, it really hit hard that bit. Yeah.
It's a hard age. Yeah, Paige is
Yeah.
20. And I don't think anyone gets through teenagerhood unscathed. And particularly, I think being a teenager today, trying to navigate, some of the things that the book is dealing with, exacerbated by, the internet and AI and all the other things. It's very frightening.
Uh-huh.
I think it's probably always been quite difficult to be a teenager, and it's always been a complex relationship, specifically between teenage girls and mothers in many
Yeah.
cases. I think it's a particularly really difficult time right now.
Especially with everything that is available online and you don't know what people are seeing and the kids are
Yeah,
seeing. Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah.
Something that just to finish off, it's something that I love to talk about is the artwork. I think I'm
Mm.
seeing there Femme Feral right behind you. Is that right? Femme Feral. How do you,
The UK
that's
cover.
the UK version. Yeah. Uh-huh.
This is the
I've seen
arc.
that's all right.
And this
I
is
know
the, oh, sorry, I
that's
don't know
the
why my
Is
camera's
that's
zooming
the
in.
US version.
That's the
No,
US
that's
version,
right.
and
Which is out in that's out in May. No.
that's right, and that's artwork by Andrea Dumata, who is
Uh-huh.
a goddess. I'm so happy. I mean, I love both of the covers, and I love that they're both so
Oh yeah,
different. Aren't they both
they're both
great?
great in their own particular
Yeah,
specific way. What I really love, and I'm going to get my hands on one, is the special indie bookstore
the sprayed edges.
shave spreads.
Oh, I'm
That's fantastic.
obsessed. It's so good. Yeah, it's got fur around the edges and then a
Uh-huh.
razor. I mean, they didn't, it was wonderful because they didn't show me until it was
All right.
done. And they were just like, we did this. And I was like,
It's
this thing,
fantastic. I love it. Uh-huh.
so good. Yeah, and it's
And
so
I
lovely.
love the
It's
fact I
just
love the fact that they're doing it with indie publishers as well. That's a
with
great
indies.
idea, right?
I love
I mean,
it
it makes
too.
it really
Yeah.
difficult for me to get hold of over here in Spain, so I'm going to be sending a message to my mum. Come over when you next come over, bring over the copy of
We'll make a plan for
from
you, Howard.
you know. But no, it's a fantastic. But I mean, how involved are you with the actual cover art process? I mean, you
I
said
mean,
there that they surprised you with the shaved
I have been
spreads there.
so spoiled with my publishing experience from beginning to end, to be honest. I have friends who've had nightmare scenarios. My publishers have both been just a dream. And they've actually been very consultative. That was the one time, that it was like a bit of a
A
surprise.
bit of surprise,
But it
yeah.
was very much like because it's amazing. No, I think everything else, I mean, what's so great, I mean, is everyone who works both at Bloomsbury Archer and Viking Penguin, they're all absolute pros. So, they very much sort of led the design decisions because they know what's gonna resonate. But yeah, I mean, they showed me options and let me have some input. I do not have a strong design eye, and I know my
Right,
limitations. So I basically just said, I trust you. Do what you're going to do, and
right.
right decision.
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Oh, that's great. It's always it's really curious to me that there's so much difference between the UK and the US artwork, right? Which is
yeah,
quite curious. Is that just
yeah.
because they get the story and then based on the story and maybe a little bit of input from you, they come up with their
Yeah,
own?
totally different teams. I mean, they
Yeah,
definitely like the editorial process was really collaborative between me and my US and my UK editor, which made life much simpler for me as I was only getting one set of notes from the two of them together, which was wonderful. But the everything past that is a very, it's an entirely separate process.
yeah,
And I think the designers, they understand the tastes of their markets, and the markets are quite different.
sure. Yeah, yeah,
I think they're I think it's I don't know. I mean, it's not out yet in the US, so we'll see. But I mean, I don't know if it maybe will be also positioned sort of very slightly differently in each of the markets. US is just a much bigger market in numbers. I don't know. I'm excited. I love them both, and it is a
Yeah,
little bit of,
sure.
I think, like a crossover novel to some extent, where I'm a horror junkie and I grew up a horror junkie and I have a tolerance for gore. But I did write this book hoping that it will be enjoyed by deep horror nerds, but also by people who don't usually read horror.
Yeah,
So I think the one leans slightly one direction and the other leans slightly the other.
yeah.
And that's lovely. Yeah, because it does feel like the book is in the middle.
Yeah, it is in the middle. Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge horror nerd, but what I'm not, well, I love comedy, but it's really, really difficult, especially a book, to make me laugh. And I was kind of trying to not laugh. I think you even talk about this in the book. I was trying my best not to laugh on the train so hard sometimes because it really was funny in places. Thanks to
Oh,
Brenda,
thank
of
you.
course, most of the time. Yeah.
Brenda, the queen.
So but honestly, it's really hard to make me laugh, especially in a book. I've got a very specific sense of humor, so you hit the
Oh,
nail on the
I'm
head for me at
delighted.
least.
Thank
Anyway,
you. I think the South African sense of humor and the British sense of humor they're not too far away. Yeah.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's like the South African, Australian, British humor is
Yeah.
quite similar. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Quite dry. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So I mean, obviously, this is coming out tomorrow in the UK, right? I'm gonna edit this
Yeah.
as soon as I get off the here. I'll edit it and get it up online as soon as possible.
Thank you.
But I'm guessing you be going. Are you taking on a bit of a launch tour? Can you tell us a bit where
Yeah.
people can catch you?
Yeah. Actually, no. Sorry.
Oh,
But I will be around. I'm going to be at some festivals later in the year. I'll be at MCM Comic Con. I will be at the Time Festival later in the year. Over the next couple of weeks, I'm mostly going to be doing events around London. The best place for people to find any of these is on my website, which is just
which
myname.com.
I will
Uh,
include
Thank
underneath.
you.
Yep,
Thank you. How do I heart like a Gen Z? I don't know.
I understand.
I'm trying to, I'm such an elder millennial. Anyway, it's too late for me. Thank you.
Sound like Brenda. You sound like Brenda. They're saying things like that.
Yeah, that's the best way. But yeah, I mean, I am really, and honestly, it's all kind of a blur for me right now. This is the part of
I
my job
imagine,
that I
yeah.
find more like quite overwhelming, but really fun. Like it's really lovely to talk to people,
Yeah.
talk to readers. I haven't gotten
Yeah,
to
yeah,
really do
and
that yet.
find out
So
what what they think about it. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Uh-huh. I
make
mean,
sure everyone else loves Brendo as much as I do.
uh-huh. Speaking of that, do you? I mean, certain writers that I speak to, they don't show anybody their work until they finish, not even their husbands
Mm.
or wives or whatever. Is that something that you do?
No, my poor friends, my poor patient, wonderful friends have read so many drafts of the
Yeah.
novel, and my lovely, lovely partner, who I mean, he should really get credited as a co-author for this because of the number
Right.
of hours he's helped me think through plot points. We go for these long walks, and he lets me talk out, and then this, and then this. But yeah, my friend Lauren Bucas gave me incredible notes in a very early draft. Friend Rachel. There's so many people. I've listed many of them in my acknowledgements.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, people have been so generous in their time. Writing can be quite a solitary and lonely pursuit, but
Sure.
this writing this book has only been a joy, really, from beginning to end.
And you can tell, I mean, honestly, like I said, it was just, I mean, really does get terrifying, but it really it did make me laugh a lot more than any other book. Like I think I said on Instagram, it's the most fun I've had with a book so far this year. It really
Oh,
has been.
thank you. That's
So
really kind. Thank you.
congratulations. Yeah. So
Thank
listen,
you.
Sam, thank you so much for your time. I won't keep you any longer. I really appreciate it. I wish you the best of success with the release tomorrow in the
Thank you so
UK and very
much.
soon in the US. And I hope to speak to you again sometime soon about another book or if this gets
Yeah,
made into a movie or whatever comes next.
you'll be the first to know.
I hope so. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Sam. Have a great day. Have a great time. All
Thank
right.
you.
Cheers then. Bye
Bye.
now. Take care.